What would you do if someone plowed through your property like it was their own personal driveway? At first, I thought it was a storm, some freak thunder rolling in across the countryside. The air was still, no wind, no shifting clouds, just the eerie silence before something went terribly wrong. Then came the sound. A deep, low rumble, growing louder by the second, shaking the earth beneath my feet. I stepped onto my porch, scanning the horizon, expecting to see dark clouds rolling in. But the sky was blue, the air warm. That's when I heard the crunch, a sickening, unmistakable sound. Cornstalks snapping. Breaking. Flattening. My stomach dropped. I bolted down the steps, my heart hammering in my chest as I ran toward the source of the noise. And then I saw it. A massive, gleaming white SUV barreling straight through my cornfield. The tires chewed through my crops like they were nothing but grass, stalks crumpling under the weight of that oversized hunk of metal. The driver didn't slow down. Didn't swerve. Didn't hesitate. Just kept plowing forward, leaving a wide, gaping trail of destruction in her wake. I stood frozen, watching as months of hard work disappeared in seconds. I'd spent weeks tending to that field, planting every stalk by hand, watering each row, watching them grow under the scorching summer sun. And now? Now, someone had decided my livelihood was less important than their convenience. The SUV skidded to a stop near my barn, dust and crushed stalks swirling around its tires. The door swung open, and out she stepped like she had just pulled into a shopping mall parking lot instead of tearing through private property. She stretched, adjusted her oversized designer sunglasses, and casually pulled her blonde ponytail through the back of her cap. Not a hint of concern. No apology. Nothing. Karen. The name fit her like a glove. She had the look, the perpetual scowl of someone perpetually inconvenienced, the sharp, clipped way she moved like the world was designed to accommodate her whims. I knew who she was. Everyone in town did. She lived in one of those over-the-top houses a few miles down, the kind with a circular driveway, a fountain out front, and enough unnecessary grandeur to make a hotel blush. She had a history of borrowing from my farm, taking eggs from the roadside stand without paying, cutting through my fields like it was her personal scenic route, always acting like she was entitled to whatever she wanted. But this? This was too far. I shoved my hat onto my head and stormed forward, rage simmering under my skin. She didn't even look guilty. If anything, she looked bored. I stopped a few feet away, keeping my voice steady, though every part of me burned to shout. Mind telling me why you just drove straight through my cornfield? Karen didn't even blink. Oh, relax, she said with a dismissive wave. It's just corn. It grows back. I stared at her, waiting for some sign that she was joking. She wasn't. That little smirk on her lips, that condescending tilt of her head, it was like she thought she was doing me a favor. I clenched my jaw. That corn was my livelihood. She had destroyed an entire row, money, time, effort, gone. I took a step closer, voice tight. Do you have any idea how much work goes into? Oh, don't be so dramatic, she interrupted, rolling her eyes. I was in a rush, and this is the fastest way to the main road. Your driveway is way over there, and I didn't feel like going all the way around. I inhaled slowly, fists clenched. That's because my driveway is for people who are supposed to be here. Not trespassers. She scoffed, crossing her arms. Trespassing? Please. I've been through here before. I felt something inside me snap. I had let her slide too many times. Too many stolen eggs. Too many shortcuts through my fields. Too many little moments where she acted like she owned the world. But this? This wasn't just theft. This wasn't just an inconvenience. This was disrespect. And she was about to find out what happens when you cross the wrong farmer. I barely had time to process the wreckage Karen had left behind before the next blow came. The next morning, just as I was sipping my coffee and trying to figure out how much of my field I could salvage, I heard the rumble of a truck pulling up my driveway. A delivery? No. The moment I stepped onto the porch and saw the envelope taped to my mailbox, my gut clenched. A letter. Official looking. Thick, expensive paper, the kind that only ever meant trouble. I tore it open and scanned the contents, my eyes narrowing with every word. A legal notice. From Karen, ***. She was suing me. I let out a slow, disbelieving breath as I read the claims. Property damage. Negligence. Failure to maintain safe conditions on my land, ***. She was demanding financial compensation for the supposed damage my farm had done to her SUV. Her SUV. The one she drove straight through my field, ***. My jaw tightened as I kept reading. She had written up some nonsense about how my land was a hazard, that my farm wasn't properly maintained, that if I had cleared obstructive crops from the commonly used path, she wouldn't have accidentally run into them. And at the bottom? A formal complaint filed with the Homeowners Association, which, by the way, had no jurisdiction over my land. But that didn't stop Karen. No, she had reported my farm as an eyesore, a potential safety hazard, and had requested an inspection. I exhaled slowly, forcing down the heat rising in my chest. This wasn't just entitlement. This was malicious. I could see it so clearly, the way she must have stormed into some lawyer's office, ranting about how her precious SUV had suffered, twisting the truth until she was the victim. And now, she wasn't just trying to walk all over me, she was trying to bury me. I crumpled the letter in my fist, then smoothed it back out. No. I wasn't about to let her win. But before I could even start figuring out how to deal with the legal mess she'd thrown at me, Karen made her next move. That afternoon, I heard something else, music. Laughter. The sound of tires rolling through dirt. Not the deep, rolling power of a single SUV, but several cars. I stepped outside, my boots crunching against the gravel, and my breath hitched. There were at least 6 cars parked in my field. And right there, standing in the middle of my ruined crops, was Karen. Wine glass in hand. Surrounded by a handful of her rich, HOA friends, all of them laughing, chatting, treating my farm like some kind of weekend getaway. The sheer audacity of it knocked the breath out of me. I stormed toward them, each step pressing down the fury boiling beneath my skin. Karen saw me coming but didn't look the least bit concerned. If anything, she smirked, tipping her glass in my direction as if she were toasting me. "Oh, Ethan." She called out. "I was wondering when you'd show up. Isn't this great? We thought your field could use a little life." I stared at her, barely keeping my voice level. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She laughed, motioning around. "It's just a small get-together. A little wine, some good company. You know, making use of the space." I looked around, at the expensive picnic blankets spread over my trampled crops, at the wicker baskets filled with fresh produce they had clearly helped themselves to, at the way one of her friends was leaning against my tractor, sipping from a bottle like he owned the place. I turned back to Karen, my hands curling into fists. "This is my land. I didn't give you permission to be here." She made a dismissive sound, rolling her eyes. "Oh, come on. You were so upset about me driving through, now I'm actually appreciating your farm. You should be thanking me. I'm bringing you exposure." Exposure. Like I was some struggling influencer looking for followers instead of a man trying to keep his livelihood intact. One of her friends snickered. Another clinked their glass against Karen's. I exhaled through my nose. I wasn't a violent man, but for the first time, I felt the raw, dangerous urge to grab that glass from her hand and toss it straight into the dirt where it belonged. Instead, I took a slow, measured step forward. Get off my land. Karen arched a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. Ethan, don't be so hostile. It's just a little fun. No harm done. I swept my gaze over the damage, the broken stalks, the crushed soil, the stolen produce, and something in me snapped, no harm done? My voice came out low, calm. Too calm. Karen, if you don't leave in the next 5 minutes, you're going to wish you had. For the first time, I saw something flicker across her face. A tiny crack in her arrogance. But then, as if to prove a point, she took another sip of wine and smiled. Fine. We were wrapping up anyway. She turned to her friends. Alright, everyone, let's pack it up. Apparently, some people don't appreciate hospitality. They laughed as they left, tossed their glasses in the dirt. Took their time, making a show of their exit, like they had won. I watched them go, my heart thudding, my fists tight. And then, as the last car rolled off my land, Wade walked up beside me, shaking his head. You really gonna let her get away with that? I didn't answer at first. I just stared at the deep tire tracks embedded in my soil. At the rows of ruined crops. At the wreckage she had left behind, again. Then I looked toward the thorn bushes growing along the back fence. And slowly, a plan started to take shape. I smiled. Not a chance. I spent the next day stewing over everything Karen had done. The lawsuit, the complaint to the HOA, the way she and her friends had walked all over my land like it was their personal park. The more I thought about it, the more I realized something important. Karen wasn't going to stop unless someone made her. That someone was going to be me. Wade showed up early that morning, finding me leaning against the fence, staring out at the deep tire tracks Karen had carved through my field. He didn't say anything at first, just kicked at the dirt with the toe of his boot before finally speaking. You look like a man with a plan. I let out a slow breath, my eyes drifting toward the far end of my property. You ever hear about those spike strips cops use? Wade snorted. What, you got some lying around? No. But we've got something better. I jerked my chin toward the thorn bushes growing along the back fence, thick, wild, and covered in razor-sharp spikes. They had been growing there for years, undisturbed and untamed, their branches woven together in a tangled mess strong enough to tear through denim, let alone a set of tires. Wade followed my gaze, his lips curling into a slow grin. You thinking what I think you're thinking? I'm thinking Karen's about to learn what happens when you treat someone's land like your personal highway. That night, under the cover of darkness, we got to work. The thorn bushes were already dense and uninviting, but we needed them strategically placed. We spent hours cutting thick branches, careful to keep the sharpest ones intact. Once we had a solid pile, we hauled them over to the exact spot where Karen had driven through, her shortcut. But we weren't done. Wade wiped the sweat from his forehead, glancing over at me. Just in case she's got one of those fancy tire repair kits in the back of her SUV. I smirked, already ahead of him. From the barn, I gathered a bucket of rusted nails, old, forgotten, but still sharp as ever. We mixed them in with the thorns, hidden beneath the mess of branches, waiting like tiny steel teeth. By morning, it looked like nothing had changed. The bushes blended in naturally, a small patch of nature reclaiming the land Karen had so carelessly torn through. There were no signs. No warnings. Just a trap. And all we had to do was wait. I didn't have to wait long. That afternoon, like clockwork, I heard the sound of an engine in the distance. I sat on my porch, newspaper in hand, pretending not to hear it. The roar grew louder, faster, and then, there she was. That gleaming white SUV, barreling down the same path she always took, cutting across my land like she owned the place. She didn't slow down. Didn't hesitate. Didn't even glance around to see if anyone was watching. She just assumed, like always, that she could do whatever she wanted. And then it happened. Pop. The first tire burst like a gunshot. Then another. Then another. A horrible screeching noise filled the air as the SUV jerked sideways, lurching to a violent stop. I folded my newspaper and stood, stretching like I had all the time in the world. From where I stood, I could see her flailing inside the car, could hear her muffled screams of frustration as she realized what had happened. I took my time walking over. By the time I reached the wreckage, Karen was already out of the SUV, standing in the middle of my field with her hands on her hips, her face red with fury. Her designer sandals crunched against the dirt as she stomped toward me. Asterisk, you. Asterisk, she shrieked, jabbing a manicured finger in my direction. Asterisk, what the hell did you do? Asterisk. I raised an eyebrow, keeping my expression neutral. Asterisk, what are you talking about? Asterisk. Her hands flailed wildly toward the SUV. Asterisk, my tires. You sabotaged my car. Look at them. Asterisk. I crouched down, pretending to examine the damage, even letting out a low whistle. Asterisk, wow. Looks like you ran over something nasty. Asterisk. Her nostrils flared. Asterisk, you put those thorns there on purpose. Asterisk. I shrugged. Asterisk, Karen, I've told you before, this is my land. If you drive through it, you take your chances. Asterisk. Her face twisted with rage, her entire body practically vibrating with fury. Asterisk, I'm calling the cops. Asterisk. I nodded, not the least bit concerned. Asterisk, go right ahead. Asterisk. She fumbled for her phone, punching in numbers with enough force to nearly break the screen. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. And sure enough, a few minutes later, a familiar blue pickup truck rumbled up the dirt road. Sheriff Hank Lawson stepped out, adjusting his belt as he took in the scene. He looked at me, then at Karen, then at the SUV. And then he sighed. Asterisk, what is it this time? Asterisk. Karen stormed toward him. Asterisk, this man, this criminal, sabotaged my vehicle. He laid out spikes or something. My car is ruined. Asterisk. The sheriff turned his gaze to me. I gave him an easy shrug. Asterisk, just some natural thorn bushes growing wild, Sheriff. They've been there for years. If someone drove into them, well, that's on them, isn't it? Asterisk. Karen's face turned a deep shade of red. Asterisk, that doesn't matter. He can't do this, it's illegal. I'll sue. Asterisk. The sheriff scratched his chin, looking about as unimpressed as I felt. Asterisk, well now, let's think about this. You've been warned before about trespassing, haven't you? Asterisk. Karen opened her mouth, closed it. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face. The sheriff continued, his voice dropping just enough to make her flinch. Asterisk, and what he did isn't illegal. These here are natural thorns. If you drove into them, well, that's on you. Asterisk. Silence stretched between us. Karen looked back at her wrecked SUV, at the shredded rubber, at the deep gashes where the thorns and nails had done their work. For the first time in her life, she had no way out. And I was going to enjoy every second of it. Karen stood there, her face twisted in fury, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her fists as she glared at me. The sheriff had just told her in no uncertain terms that she had no case, that what had happened was on her, but if there was one thing I knew about Karen, it was that she wasn't the type to back down gracefully. No, she was the type to double down, to make herself the victim, to try and bend the world to her will like it was designed to serve her. Her lips parted, and for a split second, I could see the calculation in her eyes. She wasn't just angry. She was scheming. Sheriff, this isn't fair. She burst out, her voice dripping with indignation. You don't actually believe him, do you? Look at my car. Sheriff Lawson barely glanced at her ruined SUV. He'd been in law enforcement long enough to know exactly who Karen was. He had probably been called to her house dozens of times over the years, neighbors complaining about her ridiculous HOA rules, disputes over property lines, the usual nonsense. But Karen wasn't done. Not yet. Sheriff, she continued, her tone shifting, suddenly sugar-sweet, almost flirtatious. We both know this is just a misunderstanding. I mean, we can work something out, can't we? She reached into her designer purse, pulled out her wallet, and with a casual flick of her wrist, slid a crisp stack of $100 bills halfway out. The sheriff stilled. My stomach twisted with disgust as I watched her try to bribe a lawman like he was some minimum wage employee she could bully. Did you just try to bribe me, Karen? The sheriff's voice was low, dangerous, the kind of tone that sent a chill through the air. Karen froze, her fingers hesitated over the money, realizing a half-second too late she had miscalculated. Sheriff Lawson took one slow step forward, towering over her, and her confident expression wilted under the weight of his gaze. You might want to save that cash, he said, his voice flat. Bribery charges aren't cheap. Karen yanked her hand back like she had just been burned. Her mouth opened and closed, her brain scrambling for a way out. I wasn't. You weren't what? The sheriff cut her off, folding his arms. Because I could go ahead and take you down to the station right now. Might even be able to get a judge to take a look at this case today. You remember Judge Monroe, don't you? Far as I recall, he owns a farm, too. Karen's face drained of color. For the first time, real fear crept into her expression. Judge Monroe was a no-nonsense, old-school type, the kind of man who wouldn't just laugh her out of court, he'd probably make her pay damages to me for trespassing. She knew she was losing. But Karen wasn't the type to admit defeat. Not openly. Instead, she turned on me, her eyes burning with resentment, like this was somehow my fault. This isn't over, she spat through clenched teeth. I just smiled and tipped my hat. Oh, I think it is. And then came the final humiliation. The tow truck rolled up, kicking dust into the air as it pulled alongside her ruined SUV. The driver hopped out, took one long look at the vehicle, then let out a low whistle. Damn, he said, shaking his head. Looks like you had yourself an adventure. Karen scowled, just get it out of here. The driver didn't argue. He went to work, hooking up the chains while Karen stood off to the side, arms crossed, foot tapping impatiently. She didn't look at me. Didn't look at the sheriff. She just seethed, waiting for this nightmare to be over. And then the driver came back with a clipboard. That'll be about $500 for the tow, he said casually. Karen's jaw dropped, $500? Yep. And that's just to get it to town. Repairs are another story. Asterisk. Her hands trembled as she yanked out her credit card, shoving it at him with a muttered curse. I watched the entire thing unfold, feeling the kind of satisfaction you only get when justice is served. She had walked onto my land, acted like she owned the place, trampled all over my work, and now she was paying the price. Asterisk asterisk literally, asterisk asterisk. As the tow truck pulled away, dragging her poor, battered SUV behind it, Karen turned back to me one last time. Her voice was low, venomous. Asterisk, you'll regret this. Asterisk. I smirked. Asterisk, doubt it. Asterisk. She stormed off down the dirt road, kicking at rocks as she went, forced to walk the long, humiliating stretch back to town. Wade let out a low whistle, shaking his head as we watched her go. That was beautiful, he murmured. I nodded, feeling the weight of every frustration she'd put me through finally lift. Asterisk, better than I could have planned. Asterisk. The next few days were peaceful, no Karen, no SUV, no entitled demands. But small towns talk. Word spread fast. At the diner. At the feed store. At the farmer's market. Everywhere I went, people laughed, shook their heads, patted me on the back. Asterisk, about time someone put Karen in her place. Asterisk. I had a feeling she wasn't done yet. But I also knew one thing for certain. Next time, it wouldn't just be thorns. A week passed before I saw her again. For days, my land stayed peaceful, no entitled trespassers, no SUVs flattening crops, no smug laughter echoing across my fields. The town had its fun with the story, and I heard it repeated everywhere I went. Karen, the queen of the HOA, finally put in her place. I expected her to retaliate, to come back with some new scheme, some ridiculous complaint meant to make my life harder. But instead, something happened I never saw coming. Late one afternoon, as I sat on my porch with a fresh cup of coffee, I heard the sound of a car pulling up my driveway, the right way this time. I looked up. It wasn't the gleaming white SUV anymore. No, that was still in the shop, from what I'd heard around town. Instead, a plain rental car idled near the edge of my property. The door opened, and out stepped Karen. For a moment, I just watched her. No expensive sunglasses, no designer handbag, no entourage of HOA friends trailing behind her. Just Karen, standing there, hesitating. That alone told me everything I needed to know. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and started toward me. I stayed where I was, sipping my coffee, waiting. When she reached the steps of my porch, she hesitated again, like she was physically forcing herself to be here. Finally, she spoke, her voice clipped and stiff, like she was chewing on nails. I might have overreacted. I raised an eyebrow. You don't say. Her jaw tightened, and for a second, I thought she'd turn and walk away. But she didn't. She forced herself to stand there, shifting uncomfortably under my gaze. I'm not saying what you did was fair, she muttered, still clinging to whatever pride she had left. But I shouldn't have driven through your field. I set my cup down, watching her closely. Her hands were clenched at her sides, her lips pursed so tight they were almost white. I could tell she hated every second of this. But she was here. And she was saying the words. And I prompted, just to twist the knife a little. Her nostrils flared. She let out a sharp breath. And I won't do it again. Now that was the part one actually cared about. I nodded, leaning back in my chair. That's all I needed to hear. She exhaled sharply, like admitting that had physically hurt her, then turned on her heel and marched back to her car. She didn't say goodbye. Didn't wait for a response. Just climbed inside, slammed the door, and sped off, though this time, she used the driveway like a normal person. A slow grin spread across my face as I watched the dust settle behind her. Wade stepped out onto the porch, having watched the whole thing from inside. "Think she learned her lesson?" he asked. I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. "Probably not. But she knows one thing for sure." Wade smirked. "What's that?" I picked up my coffee again, letting the silence stretch before answering. "Next time, it won't just be thorns." I leaned back in my chair, feeling the cool breeze roll in as the sun started to dip over the fields. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about making Karen suffer, though I won't lie, that part had been pretty damn satisfying. It was about respect. About standing up for what was mine. People like Karen? They don't learn from being told no. They learn from consequences. From being forced to face the fact that their power, their entitlement, doesn't mean a damn thing when they step onto the wrong land. And maybe, just maybe, she'd think twice before treating someone else's hard work like it was her personal playground. But what do you think? Do people like Karen ever really change, or do they just learn to pick their battles more carefully? Let me know, I'd love to hear your stories.